Lindsey Graham, deeply unhappy with the realignment towards Russia. We've got resistance too from those of the Jewish and Catholic faiths as well. So before we've been talking about disruption, it now feels more than that. It feels a little bit more like chaos, like the system here is even unstable.
Robert Moore in Washington. Many thanks. Here, the Prime Minister is being accused of putting the Queen in a very difficult position by inviting President Trump for a state visit later this year. A former top Foreign Office civil servant has questioned whether he is deserving of the honour. Nick Wallace has the details.
Whilst thousands of ordinary people expressed their outrage at Donald Trump on the streets last night, a more genteel figure broke cover this morning. Baron Ricketts of Shortlands, former permanent secretary to the Foreign Office, who helped decide suitable candidates for state visits, thinks Theresa May has been a little too hasty.
I understand, as I say, the importance of cementing the relationship with the new president. I think there are other ways of doing that than by proposing a state visit, which brings the Queen so closely into the issue, and that could have taken a bit more time.
Lord Ricketts' concerns aren't just shared by thousands of protesters. An online petition aimed at stopping the state visit has got more than 1.6 million signatures, with dozens more signing up every few seconds. But today the government confirmed that Donald Trump will visit Britain this year, a decision still supported by Theresa May and many of those in her party.
I think given the fact that she had the privilege of being the first world leader to meet Donald Trump in the White House, I think it would be unusual if she didn't reciprocally offer a visit back to UK. The US is our greatest and strongest ally in the world.
And it was right that it was a state visit?
He's a head of state, why wouldn't it be?
The Queen is no stranger to hosting controversial figures. Russian President Vladimir Putin was afforded a state visit in 2003, and King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia got the red carpet treatment in 2007. Sometimes it seems global economic reality comes ahead of political sensitivity. In a post-Brexit world, Britain is going to need all the friendly trading partners it can get. And so the decision to flatter Donald Trump with the pomp and ceremony of a full state visit is recognition of America's importance to Britain, whatever current policies the president seems intent on pursuing. Nick Wallace, ITV News, Buckingham Palace.
And there's plenty more about the protests and the petition on our website, itv.com/news. You can also find out about the 10 most signed petitions in the UK and what they've achieved. A woman accused of telling her boyfriend to shoot a toddler with an airgun to shut him up has told the court she wasn't to blame. Harry Studley was just 18 months old when he was shot in the head last summer. He still suffers from regular seizures. Emma Horseman's partner, Jordan Walters, has admitted firing the rifle, but she is now on trial accused of encouraging him on. Rupert Evelyn is outside Bristol Crown Court. Rupert, what did Emma Horseman say in court?
Well, it was a fairly tearful appearance in the witness box by Emma Horseman. Initially, she was questioned by her own defence lawyer. She denied saying that she had told her fiancé to point the gun at his head of little Harry. She says, "No, I didn't. I can't remember saying that." She said in the witness box that she didn't even know that the air rifle had been fired. Well, then under cross-examination, it was put to her that she didn't complain of having a bad memory at any point during a 50-minute interview with police that was video recorded when she was a witness. In that interview, she told the person asking the questions that she could see Jordan, but told the court that she couldn't have seen him today. There was a conflict there in what she said in the witness box in terms of what the jury were being told. In the video, she said, "Could you see your fiancé?" She replied today saying, "I can't remember seeing that." She said, "You could see him at the fridge." She said, "Correct. You saw him holding a gun." "No," she said. "You saw him pointing a gun." "No," she said. She finished up in floods of tears, and that was the end of her as a witness today.
Rupert Evelyn, thank you. There are questions this lunchtime over what exactly Lord Coe knew about corruption allegations in athletics. He told a group of MPs in 2015 that he was not aware of specific claims of corruption around the Russian doping scandal. But today, a new set of emails has been released. Our sports editor Steve Scott is here. What do these messages say then?
Well, this all it's worth pointing out that this all revolves around evidence that Lord Coe gave to MPs investigating doping in sport at the end of 2015. Him saying, as you just said, that he was not aware of any specific allegations around doping in Russia. However, now this email exchange has emerged today from a year earlier, suggesting some say otherwise. It reads, I have in the last couple of days received copy documentation of serious allegations being made by and on behalf of the Russian female athlete Shobakova from David Bedford. The purpose of this note is, of course, to advise you that I have now been made aware of the allegations. Well, given this new evidence, the head of the MPs Committee, Damien Collins, says he's disappointed that it appears that Lord Coe hasn't shared all the information he should have done.
There's a recurring theme of senior officials that have got an idea that there's a problem, and what are they doing to act upon intelligence or information that they've received to make sure it's being fully and properly investigated. And that's been one of the areas of interest for us. These allegations don't involve Lord Coe directly, but he was a senior member of the IAAF at a time when he was being informed about them.
And that's the point. This all comes at a time, or happened at a time, when Lord Coe was standing for the IAAF presidency, which makes it perhaps a little bit more uncomfortable for him. A few days ago, Lord Coe wrote a letter to Damien Collins outlining his response to this latest email release, and essentially he was saying he still does not think there is a discrepancy between what was in the emails and the evidence he gave to MPs.
All right, Steve Scott, thank you very much. Thank you. Still to come this lunchtime. The half marathon that stopped short of its own finish line. Just what went wrong at the Great Scottish Run. Right now, Parliament has begun debating the bill that will begin Britain's exit from the EU. If the Brexit bill is passed into law, the Prime Minister says Article 50 will be triggered by the end of March. There was a simple question from the Brexit Secretary David Davis to fellow MPs. Do you trust the people or not? Our political correspondent Emily Morgan is outside the Commons chamber this lunchtime. Emily, what have you heard so far?
Well, as you said, the Brexit Secretary David Davis has kicked off this debate this morning, and it's the first time that MPs have had the opportunity to discuss the legislation which will launch the process for us leaving the EU. And I have to say, the government is in no way panicked about this. They are convinced that the legislation will complete its passage through Parliament in time for Theresa May to meet her deadline of March for triggering Article 50. Now, MPs will debate here until midnight tonight. They'll continue tomorrow and vote on it tomorrow evening. And about an hour ago, David Davis challenged any MP to vote against the will of the British people.
We asked the people of the UK if they wanted to leave the European Union. They decided they did. So at the core of this bill lies a very simple question. Do we trust the people or not?
Yeah. Had the outcome been to remain, we would have expected the result to have been honoured. And that cuts both ways. A decision was made on the 23rd of June last year to leave the EU. Mr. Speaker, it follows that the Prime Minister should not be blocked from starting the Article 50 negotiations.
But of course, Labour are in a very tricky position over this, and they could come off far worse than the government after this debate. Jeremy Corbyn has issued a three-line whip for his MPs to vote for this bill, but there's still a significant number who are planning to vote against. A senior Labour source has told me that around 15 plan to vote against, about the same number again could abstain, and Mr Corbyn's already lost 2 of his shadow cabinet. He could lose more, so it's not a pretty position for them.
Emily Morgan, thank you. MPs from different parties are to work together to help combat loneliness. A commission has been set up in honour of the late MP Jo Cox, who was in the initial stages of starting the project when she was murdered last June. The aim is to tackle the so-called silent epidemic of loneliness, which affects more than 9 million people and is thought to be as bad for your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Sally Biddulph has this report.
Jack King is 93 and spends hours on his own. His wife of 64 years, Audrey, died 7 years ago, and alongside his grief, Jack has had to reconcile loneliness.
I became terribly lonely when I lost my wife. I lost the will to do things. I didn't really want to live. And you can sink into a pit of despair, really. You just got to pull yourself out of it. With a bit of outside help, even a phone call, that helps.
Jack is a proud, intelligent man, a father to 3 sons, an army veteran and a former prisoner of war. He's used to coping, but loneliness hit him hard.
At my age, you never owned up to pain or anything like that. You always disguised it, and I suppose this is true of loneliness. You don't go along and commiserate with people with their loneliness. You just accept that they have a degree of it, as you have.
Jack found solace through hobbies and local friendship groups, but his story is mirrored across the UK, and it's not just the elderly who need company. It was something MP Jo Cox recognised and was working on in the months before she was murdered. It will now form part of her legacy.
Jo was all about people, and this is a very people-centred issue. It isn't party political. It's very much about us coming together as communities and as a society, and just being a little bit kinder to each other.
The Jo Cox Commission on Loneliness has now been officially launched by her friends in Parliament. It brings together 13 organisations with the sole aim of making life better for people. Sally Biddulph, ITV News.
Well, one of those friends and one of the MPs leading the commission is the Labour MP Rachel Reeves. She joins me now from Westminster. You were good friends with Jo. This was an issue she was clearly very passionate about.
Yes, absolutely. As a Member of Parliament in Batley and Spen, Jo spent an awful lot of time with people, and she was profoundly affected by the number of people she met who were lonely all or most of the time. She realised that some people who she met on the doorstep might not have another meaningful interaction with a human being that day or even that week. And Jo wanted to do something about that, which is why she got this commission up and running before she was murdered. And as a friend and a colleague of Jo's, I wanted to continue that work. Jo's now not able to champion the causes she cares about, but we are.
Why, sorry to interrupt you there, why are we in this state? Why are so many people feeling like this?
Well, part of it, and you've just spoken to Jack, part of it is that we are living longer and there are more people older in life who have outlived their close friends and family, and many of those people will be alone. But it's not just about older people, as you've said. I think, part of it is we're all so busy in our lives, and we always put off tomorrow what we should be doing today. And this commission, as Kim, Jo's sister, has said, is about putting other people first, making time for others, as Jo did in her life, not just as an MP, but also as a mother, a wife, a daughter, and a sister, and as a friend. And so this is about encouraging people to take those small actions, phoning up an elderly relative, making time for friends and neighbours who we know might be on their own, and putting others first. This commission is about a call for action. If 9 million people are out there and say that they're lonely all or most of the time, that means that each and every one of us knows somebody who is going through that, and we could be the difference.
OK, Rachel Reeves, let us know how that goes. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
A father's legal fight to take his daughter on holiday in term time has reached the highest court in the land today. Last year, the High Court blocked a £120 fine imposed on the father, John Platt, for flying his daughter to Florida during term time. Judges decided he had not acted unlawfully. His local authority wants that decision overturned in the Supreme Court. And the estimated value of goods stolen during the Hatton Garden heist has more than doubled to £25 million. It was thought the gang originally took £14 million worth of jewellery in April 2015. Now prosecutors are seeking the extra cash from the 5 men jailed for the conspiracy. Finally, whether you are a professional or an amateur runner, setting a personal best or indeed a record during a half marathon is quite an achievement. But competitors of last year's Great Scottish Run who did just that have had their times invalidated after discovering that the course was 150 metres too short. Peter Smith is in Glasgow. What went wrong, Peter?
Well, the organisers came up short. This was supposed to be the finish line. You can see just marked by a yellow line on the curb. Now, when 32,000 runners crossed this line last year, they thought they'd completed a half marathon. Turns out they hadn't. They were about 150 metres short. Now, I've measured that out. That's about the distance from here to that sign. They would have had to run that distance again. Now, the winner on the day was Callum Hawkins. He thought he had recorded a new Scottish record for the half marathon, a new personal best. Turns out he didn't. That's gone. That time is invalid. The organisers have calculated that it would have taken him about 24 seconds to run this distance again. They've added this onto his time. So as you can imagine, there is huge disappointment. It's completely invalid, anyone who ran. And the organisers have put this down to human error. They're saying that there was roadworks on the day. They had to recalibrate the route and a mistake was made. This is what they had to say.
This is the first time in 30 years of the Great Run Company that we've had an incident like this. We've had over 4 million finishers to date, and this is the first time it's happened. So it is an isolated incident. It's certainly something that hasn't been repeated or hasn't happened previously, and we'd like to think that going forward it certainly won't happen again.
Now, there is no compensation being offered to anyone who's affected by this. You don't get free entry this year, but you do get priority if you want to enter this year. So if you do want to put yourself through it all again, it's on October 1st, and the organisers are saying they will guarantee you a place, and they'll be double and triple checking the distance.
Peter Smith, thank you. And that's all we've got time for this lunchtime. Join Mary Nightingale for the latest at 6:30 from me and everyone here for now. Bye-bye.